This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs the Playbook, and I have a new friend of mine, an extraordinary entrepreneur, best-selling author, global thought leader, motivational speaker, and the chairman of Ferrazzi Greenlight. Keith Ferrazzi, welcome to the Playbook.
David, thank you. I'm excited about today. It should be a fun conversation.
Oh, I guarantee that it'll be hard to fit it in the time frame that I have. You're one of those people I know. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Anyway, let's get right to it. I want to talk about your book. Just came out. And leading without authority. And I am a value-based leader myself. The reason I'm a value-based leader is gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, inspiration based on a mission of making money, helping people, and having fun. That's all I teach, believe it or not. The skill stuff, the knowledge stuff is all mentorship and learning as we go, making mistakes, making sure they feel comfortable making mistakes. What is your premise of leading without authority?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the big premise is winning. I've been coaching teams for 20 years, and what I can tell is that I've got to undo a lot of wrong-headed behaviors when I'm coaching teams, and I have accumulated that in a bundle of behaviors that I call co-elevating. So what happens today in most teams is there's a leader, and they are hub and spoke to a group of individuals, and those group of individuals are, darn it, earnestly doing their best to do their bit, right? So the head of sales is doing their bit, the head of marketing is doing their bit. And yeah, there's some overlap, and every once in a while we slip out of coexisting in the collaboration because we have to, right? But we go right back into coexistence. And here's what happened. The world is changing so fast, as we all know, even before the crisis, that if you are not exponential and transformative, and if you're not radically adaptable and thinking constantly how to transform, then you're really dirt. I mean, you're going to be left behind in a significant way. The only way you can do that, there's no leader that can run around playing, whack-a-mole. You need to disperse the responsibility from the overload on a leader to the shared load on a team. The organization design on the future is that the team is responsible for each other's success. They're crossing the finish line together. They give each other feedback. They kick each other in the butt. They hold each other accountable. They lift each other's energy. They care about each other deeply. Because if you as a leader can begin to disperse some of what used to be responsible for you only into the team's fabric to make that team co-elevating, you get transformational outcomes, you get agile workforce and working engagement, and you get to actually do the job of the CEO.
When you're talking about that, I love to put things in context of other realms. So when we're talking about leading without authority, I'm thinking about Jerry Jones versus Robert Kraft, right? Robert Kraft is someone that has built a dynasty by leading without authority. And Jerry Jones is trying to play whack-a-mole.
Yeah. No, and I got to tell you, and it's noticeable. But listen, I don't know about you, David. I mean, you're a much better leader than I am. I played whack-a-mole all my life.
Oh, wow.
And when I started realizing that a set of practices changed behavior and changed mindset, I started adopting and coaching the practices. I mean, I believe in values too, but I also believe that you don't think your way into a new way of acting. You act your way into a new way of thinking. So what I wanted to do with leading without authority is I wanted to give our viewers a set of distinct practices that they needed to do that allowed them to start shifting their outcomes in transformative ways. And by the way, I've introduced a whole new dimension to it, which is now in a remote environment. Like, how do you lead without authority in a remote environment? I can give you some tips if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
So look, there are 8 attributes of high-performing teams. One of the attributes is that you need to have significant courage and candor among the team. Significant courage and candor among the team. Yet, our research shows, and because we coach teams through transformation, our research shows that 74% of people on teams say that they do not have permission to challenge in the room. Right? 71% of teams say that they get no value. They get no innovation value from being a part of the team. Right? So that shows me that there is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
So a couple of simple practices. Take all of your meetings moving forward and make sure that at least 50% of them are used for collaboration, not report outs. Kill report outs, right? The way you kill report outs is, and it's wonderful in a remote environment, you can take a Zoom meeting and with a click of a button, you can put a question to the team. You know, what are the greatest risks that we're going to face with launching this new product? Click a button. Everybody is in small rooms of 3. And in those small rooms of 3, they have higher psychological safety. They have more risk taking. They'll tell each other the truth. They'll be more innovative because of the psychological safety. They'll do that in a small room. Whereas if you had that discussion in a big room, you'd probably hear crickets, or you'd hear 2 voices of the 8 that you have in your team, or 15 that you have in your team, right?
Yeah.
Break in a small room, have them report back. Now you're dealing with truth telling. That's just a simple practice that is a superfood for collaboration and candor. Now, if you are going to do report outs, do a process called bulletproofing afterward. Bulletproofing is when once again, somebody does their report out, push a button, break everybody down into groups of 3. They go into groups of 3 and they ask the following 3 questions. What challenge can we offer this person who just gave a report out that would minimize their risk? Like, what do you see that they don't see? What crazy innovation could you give them? That's question number 2. What crazy innovation could you give them that might break through their thinking and think of something totally differently? And third is, how can we help? How can we help? You know, what resource, what's advice, etc. You've just taken 3 attributes of the 8, by the way. There's 8 attributes we coach to. You've given 3 attributes of the 8, and you have now infused those in a natural process of your business. Now everybody is going to be challenging. Everybody is going to be more innovative. Everybody is going to be more caretaking and generous. I mean, these are attributes of co-elevating teams that I talk about in the book, Leading Without Authority, and I've just given you a distinct practices in a remote environment to bring them to life, right? So I believe that in this remote world we're living in the next couple of months, you as an entrepreneur have to reboot your team. I call it recontracting. Recontracting. In the next 2 months, you have a choice of recontracting your team to look for unexpected growth opportunities they don't see today. Find unsuspecting risk opportunities that are going to bite them in the butt and become radically adaptable. In weekly sprints, let's reinvent our damn businesses. And the point is, you can't do it alone. You need to drive the responsibility down into the fabric of your team and make them the leaders of each other, not just you the leaders of them.
You know what's interesting? I'm thinking, have you read Marshall Thurber ever, Social Deviance, or the idea of perturbation, which is an old school idea? It would be an old school football coach or a leader in the context of a big bureaucracy of working for a multinational corporation.
No.
I, in my young age, got to do and got sucked into it many times and read it. And it always bothered me, but it worked. But then it worked because I was young and had a short term perspective. And I think one of the things that I like about Leading Without Authority and practicing some of the things that I look forward to finishing your book, some of the things that you put forth in there is that in the short term, we only understand where we're at. We don't allow to understand where everyone is at. And there's different ages, different interests, different values. I recently had one of my younger employees, I literally almost teared up because he came back in and we've been working remote. You know, everybody, we've been hiring people even remotely. But he came in and he said, you know, I sat on the floor of my bathroom last night with my wife and did an inventory check of my values, my personal experiential giving and receiving. And I think this is the best way that we should be working forward because this is what you need. These guys could do this. I can make more money doing this with you. And does this seem like it works for you? And I'm sitting there going, gosh, I never 10 years ago would have known that. And I would have thought I would have paid him to do things that don't need to be done. Right. But he's collaborative and working within these small groups remotely and finding and learning about better ways to do a team, a business as a team. What other things, you know, in that context of we don't have to perturbate people, we don't intimidate, we don't have to bully them, we don't have to constrain them or micromanage them. What are some of the other things that we can do to empower them to think on their own?
Yeah, well, I have a few, by the way, everything you just said, I'm overwhelmed. I've got a few things to say to it, but to answer your direct question, I think we need to celebrate and praise people. That is definitely that is a fuel for co-elevation. If you're the kind of person that when people come into your team, and by the way, remember, when I say your team, I'm not talking about people that report to you. I'm talking about who you need to get the job done. Your team, and that's an older, in the book, I talk about old work rules, new work rules. Old work rules, when somebody says, how's your team? It meant the people that report to you, or maybe the people on the team that you report to. The team now is those you need to get the job done. Once you identify those you need to get the job done, you own their energy. And ideally, you get the team to own each other's energy. And celebration and reward is a big part of it. I'll give you a really clever practice that I love to use. You'll love this. So once a week with your team, I want there to be a point on the agenda where you say, all right, what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes is we're going to go around and everybody's going to say one person in the company that they most appreciate from the past week, right? That they really want to celebrate and thank from the past week. And it can definitely be people in that room. It can be people outside the room. And the benefit of this is imagine the energy that somebody gets when somebody thanks them for something that they've done, celebrates them in front of their peers. So powerful. But now imagine 3 weeks into this, if you're the SOB sitting at the table, nobody has appreciated. What is that? The ninja move here, right? Is that person is going to ask themselves, well, shit, how can I be helpful to somebody? Why can't I get celebrated by somebody, right? Again, I love doing these activities and these practices I call superfoods for high performing teams. Yeah. And that, this idea of celebration. The other one is empathy, right? I start meetings with something called a sweet and sour. And we were present and helped the turnaround of General Motors coming out of bankruptcy. And even to this day, they still
have to do that again.
Well, I'm back again.
Yeah, exactly.
Back again. And I got to tell you, right now I'm with Delta Airlines, I'm with General Motors, I'm with Verizon. Some of the most inspirational people going through this crisis is extraordinary. I'm really inspired by it's not easy work to have hundreds of thousands of families, under your care. But anyway, personal professional check-in or sweet and sour. Everybody goes around. What's going on sweet right now? What's going on sour? It opens, there's a word I created for this, porosity. I talk about it in chapter 4. Your job as a leader is to open the absorptiveness of others. You make other people absorptive to your ideas. Serve, share, and care are 3 distinct words that if you're leading without authority, to invite people in to be led with you is serve, share, and care. The share piece, sweet and sour. I would say sweet, couldn't be more excited about the reviews I'm getting, right, for this book. People like Brian Cornell of Safeway and others saying this is the future of org design. And then on the sour base, I am struggling as a father right now. My oldest son, 25. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. So anyway, I am struggling. So that sweet and sour empathizes the team, right? Once again, giving that energy, celebration, relationship, right? We've got to put these practices. And at the end of a meeting, do a really quick go around. One word, what are you most grateful for? Boom, 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 right? These are things that we have to do, and we put these practices in place.
That's awesome. I'm going to take a little bit of a curveball. Hopefully you'll knock it out. But it's funny because when I'm looking and reading the book and thinking about leading without authority, the one authority that I think about and the biggest challenge that I have is, I have a 21, 18-year-old and 16-year-old daughter. I have a 10-year-old son who is no problem at all as far as leading without authority. But teenage daughters are a great challenge. And I was going to ask you, how can I utilize some of the practices in the book, or which practices in the book are best utilized? Because the most important job that I have as a leader is to my children. And it's also, although the most important, and I'm renowned like you for being an executive coach to leaders and being a leader myself, it's the most challenging, and I sit there going, what, and maybe you're going to tell me can't use what I teach and you can't use what you teach, brother. It's just a different form, or does it apply? Are there things that can apply to our families as if it was a business?
Well, I'll tell you a story that I tell in the book on this point. So I have two children, fostered kids originally. I got them at 12 and 16. 12-year-old, terribly angry, been to 20 homes before he was in our home at the age of 12. Just had really had no sense of trust. And this was in the first round of my work at General Motors. And this was heated for me. My old man was a UAW steel worker. So this was meaningful to me. I had this wrestling match with an executive in Detroit. And I came home one night off the flight, and I came home and looking around, no one's home, but my younger boy is, he's playing video games. And I just needed to talk to somebody, despite the fact that he's not the most empathetic child in the world. And I sat down on the edge of his bed and I said, kiddo, I think I screwed up. And he stopped, he looked at me. He would never stop playing video games, right? And I think he was just the glee of like my misery was like why he was stopping. And he said, what'd you do? And I said, well, I don't know. I think I know I said some things I shouldn't have said. And I think I got scared, right? I think I went back to being a kid in Pittsburgh, not able to pay the rent. And I got scared. And he looked at me, he goes, yeah, I do that a lot too. And he stopped playing games. We sat on the floor together and we had a conversation. Co-elevation starts by getting off of your leadership pedestal and getting down on the floor and recognizing that there is a group of human souls around you, and this is the group with you included, right? That has to lead. Not you, the group. You talked about being a leadership coach. I call myself a team coach because what I've really tried to perfect is this essence of team. I think we don't spend enough time on team. We spend a lot of time on strategy, then we go down into individual roles, but there's this organism called the team. And that's what co-elevation is about. It's about maximize the impact on people, the team on the team. And that's where I think you shift, as I say, from overload to share load. And I think that's true in a family. Look, I'm not Dr. Phil. Thank goodness. I think he thinks he's a bit of a jackass anyway. But I've made more mistakes in my personal life than I care to mention. But I think that this applies to me. Co-elevation has become a North Star for all my relationships, right? I mean, principle of humility and going higher together with a group of peers. Peter Diamandis, who I know he's like he's become one of my best friends, but he's my co-elevating partner in so many ways. And I'm his, right? And I'm Jim Quick, who just came out with his great book, Limitless. Yeah. He's a co-elevating partner of mine.
Yeah, me too. Jim and I both the same as well. And it's extraordinary to get the complementary nature of perspective. And I think when you talk about your 12-year-old and you, completely interesting backgrounds, similar, synergistic, but yet so divergent. And yet it's so important when you co-elevate to be able to have these other sets, not of eyes. I always say it's a set of projectors, right? When we think about eyes seeing things, I think that's reversed. Just like we're projecting. So I want to see, how are you projecting and how am I projecting? And can we create a lens together, or can I learn about your lens, why you see the light, the love, and the lessons in some things that I don't? And it's so amazing because we're running out of time. I got to say this. One of the most interesting things is I learned about myself and my own ego and became a co-elevating person and a teammate, was that the more that I illuminated my human nature, the more people would say, oh, I love that you're vulnerable. I started crying on stages and talking about my dad. And they're like, I love your, like, I actually felt I felt invulnerable.
Wow. Well, you
allowed your son to feel invulnerable for the first time by utilizing
the courage of vulnerability. I used to think it was weakness, right? And now it's the courage of vulnerability. Listen, I'm fearful that if we are coming up to the end, I want to give your audience as many practices.
Yeah, you got killer nuggets. Possible. Keep them coming.
Well, let me give you a place where they can go. We studied over $2 million worth of research, published 20 studies of how do you lead high impact virtual teams. And I think right now that would be, this book and applying this book in your life is why I'm here. But I also want to give you, we created a new website called virtualteamswin.com, virtualteamswin.com, published all the research. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about a recontracting process. In the next couple of months, I want you to recontract with your team. How do you show up with each other, right? How do you show up with an agreement to co-create and collaborate together? Chapter 4. How do you show up in agreement to celebrate and lift each other's energy? Chapter 6. How do you show up and agree to have high degrees of candor with each other and truth telling, right? And feedback. How do you be each other's peer-to-peer feedback and coaches? The book was originally written because I thought that within every relationship there was a coaching element that we're not really good at. I wasn't good at coaching my son. I wasn't good at coaching my spouse. I wasn't good at coaching my team, or my team wasn't good at coaching each other. I wanted to bring that to the table. And what I realized, that became the essence of why I wrote Leading Without Authority. Because if you're going to lead a group of people that you don't control, right, then you've got to find ways to earn permission to lead, earn permission to feedback. All of that is also at virtualteamswin.com. So hopefully those free resources combined with the book will really help your team reboot and recontract.
That's awesome. I'm going to reboot, recontract, utilize all of these nuggets, rewatch this again and again. I'm going to take it one more time with this a twist for the end here. You are an author and a speaker, and you motivate. I want to know from the other perspective what your perception is when someone tries to lead you without authority, a team that you're on where you may have a figure that is collaborating, co-elevating in that atmosphere. What now, because you do teach and are on this side of it, what about when you're on the receiving side? How do you feel, and what perception or lessons have you learned on that side of it when you're receiving?
This has happened recently, I think, more because there's one of the principles that I teach in the book. It's chapter 1, actually, who's your team? And I teach this principle of we have the opportunity in a remote environment to what I call team out, which is imagine your team are the most extraordinary people in the world. Go invite them in. Maybe it's for 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time. You can get extraordinary people to show up in your initiative, in your ideation, right? And as a result, I have found that there's a lot of people in your and my world, like Jim Quick, like Peter Diamandis, like Tony Robbins, who are more open and humble right now, looking for how to co-create. And I have to say, I am so blessed and grateful when folks like yourself and some of these other folks that I just mentioned reach out to me because they want me involved in co-creating with them, right? Yeah. Like in the olden days, we'd always reach out to each other. Hey, I got a book coming out. Help me with it. I got the that's different. But reaching out and saying, I'm kind of stuck where I see opportunity out there, but I don't see it as clearly. Can you come in and can we co-create? Maybe there's ways we can find it together. That's happening more today than it ever was. Yeah. And out of necessity, maybe out of desperation. But, my mantra for this is I like a lot of what's going on right now. I don't want to go back to work. I want to go forward to work. And that's what I'm bringing to companies. And I believe that leading without authority is exactly the strategy, the roadmap to go forward to I want to reboot work. I want to reboot the way we're behaving. And I think we're starting to do it naturally. I want to codify it. And I want you, those listening, to bring that in and codify it.
And I think the remote access has allowed us, because a lot of times when people like you and I would get together at a big conference and we're sharing a stage, we're on. And so there's no humility, no vulnerability, and no co-creation. It's an ego-based showing off or, a pressing up of the chest. And what I found is the accessibility of being remote and being able to quickly jump back onto a LinkedIn or the Playbook or whatever we're doing. I'm able to make an emotional connection with true radical humility, where it's completely different, because no matter what anyone says, when you're backstage and everyone's kissing your butt, and you have all of these people and we're all, posturing and doing what human beings do that are ego based, it makes it very difficult to have these experiences and to share the nuggets and co-elevate and co-create, co-contract, and collaborate.
Look, and to that end, you and I haven't probably spent enough time together. If you want to do some offline kibitzing about this stuff, I would love it. Let's grab a half an hour and just see.
Well, I think Blaine will have to join us. He's jealous. So Blaine Bartlett, obviously my co-elevator, obviously writing books in the same context you are. You guys are he's been done so much for me.
Let's do it. Let's schedule it.
I knew we wouldn't have enough time, but that's a compliment to you. I will tell you that I have done hundreds of these, and this is one of what I call the repository of nuggets. I have to go back nugget after nugget after nugget. That's what I try to bring to the table when the reverse it there. But there's got to go back and listen to this or watch it, please, everyone, because I'm going back. I'm going to read again what I've read and reread because I can't wait to see it. I'm going to go to the website. Just repeat the website one more time for me.
virtualteamswin.com. virtualteamswin.com. It was a great interview Peter and I did with each other, Diamandis, that I think is just tons of nuggets. I love that one too. So that's on virtualteamswin.com. And then, of course, Leading Without Authority. I look forward to seeing you all post extraordinary reviews on Amazon.
Absolutely. I'll be the first to do so today. So thank you so much. Keith Ferrazzi, incredible speaker, author, motivational executive, and co-collaborator. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Dave Meltzer on Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.